It's going well, very well. And I don't know, I do have that excitement, Mike. I don't know why you're not feeling that yet. We're only a couple weeks away from headed down to Clearwater and getting, I understand the sentiment of the rebuild and how it's a little different, obviously, than it has been over the past couple of years with the anticipation. But I'm a baseball fan, first and foremost, and I love the idea that pitchers and catchers are less than a month away. I just can't wait. I can't wait to watch these young guys, try to do some things. And, who knows? Who knows? I'm an optimist by heart, so I'm going to say who knows what's going to happen this year.
Well, that's true. I mean, look, I think we got it was like a rite of passage that the Phillies were going to be good. And we felt like as fans that, they were spending money, they were committed to it. And it kind of shows that you can't just spend money and expect to be good. You got to make good baseball decisions. And, it's not an easy thing to keep a consistent winner. However, Murph, do you think right now, I mean, we're about less than a month away, do you think there's still changes to come? I mean, Papelbon's name has come up today. Cole's name comes up almost every single day. Do you think there's something still major that's about to happen?
Well, I do. I think I do think there's going to be some more changes. I do think we're going to, perhaps if you sat down and tried to put the 25-man roster down on a piece of paper right now, I don't think all of those pieces are here quite yet. Major, I mean, if something major were to happen, I think that would have to involve Cole Hamels. But I do think there are, whether or not Cole gets moved, I do think there are moves that will be made before we arrive in Clearwater. And, I've been part of the Phillies caravan all week, and we've been just about everywhere in the Delaware Valley this week. And I've been with Ben Revere and David Buchanan and Darren Ruff and Ken Giles. And, those are the guys that are going to be asked to carry the weight this year. But I do think that a couple of other pieces will be a part of it as we go on. I mean, as you guys know, it never is the same 25 guys from April 1st all the way through to October 1st anyway. So things are going to change. But as you pointed out, Mike, as long as they're making good baseball decisions, then I think they're changing in the right direction.
Well, Murphy, let me ask you this. As the roster sets right now, do you think that they have the ability to make it into the playoffs, win more than 72 games?
No. Well, win more than 72? Yeah, I think there's an outside chance they could win more than 72. Do I think as the roster is constructed right now, they have enough to make the postseason? No, I don't. But you just have to hope that the roster that we're looking at, currently isn't finished yet. And, Reuven has said it publicly. Pat Gillick has said it publicly. They are in a period of rebuild, and they don't expect to compete in 2015. But I can tell you this. The guys in the clubhouse, they do expect it. And don't try and tell Ben Revere that this team is not going to compete. And don't tell Cole Hamels that this team isn't going to compete, because they will argue that point, as they should.
Exactly.
Now it's just a matter of going out and doing it on the field. They need more pieces. They don't have enough yet. But hopefully those pieces are coming, whether it be this season or early next season, to get this thing back on track.
Well, what's the bullpen looking like? I know Cliff Lee is relatively healthy this year, going down to Florida, and from the way the roster's set up, I'm just saying that they might be okay in a couple of areas. They just need some big guns as far as batting and things of that nature. So what pieces do you think are the most viable to really make a difference in the team, and what do we need to improve on?
Well, I think you're exactly right. I think you said it perfectly. They have some things that are going to be pretty good, and certainly we saw a year ago that this young bullpen can be pretty good. Now, they've got to do it again. They did it for 4.5 months at the end of last season. They were extremely productive. Guys like Jake Diekman and Justin DeFreitas and Ken Giles and Mario Hollins and, of course, Jonathan Papelbon at the back end of that. But they have to do it again. And I believe that they will. They're young guys. They have a ton of talent there. I think most of it for them was learning how to pitch in the big leagues, and I think we saw most of them pretty much figure it out near the end. Starting pitching, you have Cole Hamels as your number one, and he'd be a one anywhere in the league. And Cliff Lee, we are told, is healthy and ready to go. So that's a pretty good 1-2 punch right there. Offensively is where you look and you say, all right, how's this team going to score runs? They struggled scoring runs last year. They struggled scoring runs the year before. And, they don't have Jimmy Rollins anymore in the middle of that lineup. So it's going to be incumbent upon some of these younger guys like Darren Ruff or Cody Ashe or Dominic Brown to have a bounce-back year in order for them to score runs. So if you ask me where the weakness is, it's offensively in that lineup. And I was with Ryan Sandberg 2 nights ago, and he talked about how they were going to have to really concentrate on doing things different offensively in order to score runs, because they do not have that power threat. That Marlon Byrd is gone, a guy that hit 20-plus home runs last year. So they don't have that threat that they had in years past. So they're going to have to figure out how to do it a different way. So that remains to be seen.
Gregg Murphy's with us, part of the Phillies broadcast team here on 97.3 ESPN. Murph, are you surprised at how kind of open this dialogue has been with Ruben Amaro in talking about Ryan Howard and basically suggesting that it's probably better that he's not here, but if he is here, we'll use him as we see fit. But are you surprised that they've been this open about it?
I am. It's sort of it certainly kind of flies in the face of what you get in professional sports most of the time, which is a whole lot of nothing when you talk in a public venue. Those comments were very interesting, very surprising. I don't know that anyone who has been following, along with the Ryan Howard situation could be all that shocked that that's the sentiment. But to hear them said in such a public forum certainly surprised me. That said, I think Ryan is going to be with the team when we arrive in Clearwater. And I asked Ryan Sandberg the other day if he was adamant that it is not an issue for him, and he does not believe it will be one for Ryan Howard. And you know what? Maybe, just maybe, Ryan Howard takes it almost as a challenge to say, you know what? I'll show you guys that I can be back and be the player that I was. And whether that turns him into a nice trade chip midway through the season, or if it puts him back in the limelight in Philadelphia in the middle of the lineup, either one would be a pretty good scenario. Ryan's a very likable guy, and everybody's pulling for him. So it would be great to see him bounce back. So I do think he'll take it as a personal challenge, and it remains to be seen whether or not he'll be able to, act on that.
Murph, I wanted to ask you about some of the young guys, Darren Ruff, Maikel Franco, Cody Ashe. How do you think some of those guys are going to do in spring training, making the club out of spring training for the beginning of the year?
Well, I think Cody is probably, out of the three that you just mentioned, I don't want to say a lock, but I would imagine that his position at third base is pretty set, and provided he comes out and does his job the way he is supposed to, I think that Cody Ashe is a guy to watch this year to maybe take that next step and become a really solid, everyday kind of player. I don't know that Cody Ashe is going to be a superstar in Major League Baseball, but I can tell you that Cody Ashe is a guy that you can win with, and as an everyday player in the middle of the lineup. So I'd like to see him take that next step that we know he's capable of doing. So I think he's going to get every opportunity to do that, and hopefully he picks up on that. Maikel Franco is very interesting, his situation, and a lot's going to depend on Ryan Howard and where he is. But the organization has said publicly that ideally Franco starts at AAA, and maybe comes up midway through the season after he gets some at bats at the AAA level. But if he comes out and has a terrific spring training, then I think you'll see him on the team. And whether he plays first base or some third base or a mix of the two, that remains to be seen, depending on how the roster shakes out. Darren Ruff, I think, once again, is one of those guys as we go to Clearwater that you just don't know about. He's going to get his opportunities this spring, to show that he can be an everyday player, that he can hit lefties and righties, that he can. I think defensively he's fine. I think everyone believes that. But that he's going to get those chances to see guys throwing from both sides, and he's going to have to produce. Certainly, if he does, that's a nice little addition to the lineup because he has power. He is one of the strongest men in Major League Baseball. And, we've seen when he connects what the baseball can do. He just has to be more consistent. So if you're looking for a storyline in Clearwater, I think Darren Ruff is certainly one to watch.
Another young guy we haven't talked about is Ken Giles. Possibility of Jonathan Papelbon getting dealt to Milwaukee. There's some reports out there about Papelbon wanting to get out of Philly and willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to Milwaukee. If that happens, obviously Giles is going to step into that closer role, going from 8th inning to 9th inning. How about Giles switching roles from 8th inning to 9th inning?
Yeah, okay. So I've literally have spent the entire week with Ken Giles, and I got to know him a little bit at the end of last season. Terrific guy, young guy, but extremely confident in what he is able to do. And you could even see it as he progressed in the second part of last season, starting to really understand what it takes to pitch at this level consistently. And, I mean, he worked himself into the Rookie of the Year conversation at the end of last year with a half a season's of work. I think that Ken Giles could be handed the baseball tomorrow and be told that he is a closer in Major League Baseball, and he wouldn't bat an eye, and he would go out and be able to do exactly what you needed him to do. So if the situation comes where Jonathan Papelbon is not part of this roster for this season, I think the Phillies are supremely confident that they have a guy that can do the job as well as Jonathan Papelbon did it last year.
Gregg Murphy, Phillies broadcaster here, Comcast Sportsnet 97.3 ESPN-FM. Ryan Sandberg made some comments this week talking about a quote-unquote dysfunctional clubhouse. Not sure if Jonathan Papelbon had anything to do with that. How about those comments from the skipper Sandberg talking about a dysfunctional clubhouse?
Yeah, again, it was, as we just talked about, a little bit surprising to hear such candor from a Major League manager. That said, I think Ryan Sandberg is trying to send a message to the guys that are going to be in that clubhouse this year that it needs to be better. And, the guys in the clubhouse a year ago, the 20 or probably close to 30 guys that made their way through Philadelphia last year as part of this team, the majority of those guys were decent clubhouse guys. I think what Rhino was saying was that there were instances here and there throughout the season that if you're a winning ball club, you probably don't even have to think about. But when teams are struggling, as the Phils did last year, those kind of situations start to creep up. And it's really how you handle those situations that allows you to learn from them and kind of grow into a better team, a better clubhouse. So, I don't know if too much is made of chemistry and too much is made of character and good guys in the clubhouse, but I can tell you that Ryan Sandberg believes very strongly that that's an important part of it. And I think his comments were just basically trying to show his team that it's going to be something that he emphasizes this year, and I think that's a good thing. I think the guys will step up to that challenge. I think everybody would prefer that the clubhouse is a good place to be and a fun place to be, and that everybody is kind of pulling the rope in the same direction. And I think that's really what he meant when he said that is we can't have, 15 guys pulling one way and 10 pulling the other. We really need 25 guys pulling in the same direction. And he's going to make that a point of emphasis this year.
We're talking with Gregg Murphy. We're reconnected back here at the Golden Nugget, part of the Phillies broadcast team. Mike Gill, Super Bowl champion Barrett Brooks, and Gregg Murphy on the line. Murph, another guy that I think is kind of interesting is Dom Brown. And obviously now he's kind of a veteran player. I mean, his number one prospect is kind of worn off a little bit. But do you see any reason why fans should expect him maybe to get back to that point where he is an all-star? I mean, he was an all-star 2 years ago. He had that great month, but then kind of faded off. And last year was just one he probably wants us to forget. But he was the number one prospect in baseball. Do you feel that he's closer to that guy or more of the guy we saw last year?
Well, I think he's right now. I think he's somewhere right in the middle. And the reason to believe that he can be that guy is because he has been that guy. From a talent standpoint, Dom Brown is a Major League Baseball player. I think Dom, at times, goes through these moments of maybe whether it be self-doubt or just he starts to struggle and things start to pile up, and he has a hard time, getting himself right. And but from a talent standpoint, I certainly think Dom Brown could be a very productive player in Major League Baseball. He just needs to figure out how to do it consistently. He hasn't been able to do that yet. They are extremely hopeful that this is the year that he puts it all together. And again, if he's able to do that, then he becomes a very interesting part of this lineup or a very interesting part of someone else's lineup that might bring you back something in return. So we got to remember that Dom is still a relatively young guy. It seems like he's been around a long time because we've been talking about him for so long. But in terms of baseball, he's really just starting to ramp up and get to that part of the career that should be his prime. So I'm hopeful that he'll figure it out, because you're not going to find a better guy around than Dom Brown. He's a terrific guy to be around. And it would be great to see him have that success that he had, 2 years ago that you mentioned back in that month of May that was off the charts. If he could find a little bit of that and kind of be a little bit more consistent throughout the year, then I think you're going to have a pretty good player.
Does that stem from what Sam Burgess kind of talk about, the culture or the dynamics of the locker room, how the older players interact with the younger players and really help them on? Because, like I said, I play in a couple of locker rooms. I don't know how close it is from being in the NFL to Major League Baseball, but you have older guys that can kind of help younger guys out and get them going in the right direction when they're going through periods of drought like that. Cause I played with Ben Roethlisberger. You're very young in his career. And he was kind of, we had a locker room. We had a bunch of veteran guys that could really, help him up, and also sit him down when they need to sit him down. You think it's more so that's the culture that Sandberg's trying to look for?
Absolutely. Ryan, I believe, and this is what I think. It's not something that Ryan has told me, but I believe that Ryan is hopeful and expecting that those veteran guys that you touched on will take that responsibility and really make it their own this year and try and educate the younger guys, because we will have a large part of the roster will be guys that will be considered younger guys.
Absolutely.
And really teach them, what it takes to be a professional athlete. I mean, there's more to it than just getting out on the field and using your God-given talent to play the game. There is more to it than just that. There's the daily grind of a Major League Baseball season, which is 162 games plus spring training, and it's getting yourself ready to play every time you're asked to play, and that's a learning process for a lot of guys. So, yeah, I think Rhino's gonna hope that his veterans will take that responsibility, take it very seriously, and that the young guys will then take the advice given to them and kind of run with it. That would be the hope. That is certainly what I think any football coach or any baseball manager or hockey coach is always hoping for, that there's a cohesiveness between the older guys that have been there and the younger guys that are trying to get there.
Hey, Murph, I know we lost you for a second there, and I think Pete had been asking you about Ken Giles, but obviously that would mean that Papelbon would be gone, and there's reports today that the Brewers could have some interest. Do you think that is something the Phillies really need to and are trying to do in terms of turning the corner there? Because the bullpen was a strength, and losing a guy like Papelbon, whether he's temperamental or not, he's pretty good back there, and that was a strength they had last year. Is it a good move for them to try to move on from Papelbon?
Well, I think it's a good move if the move in turn helps the Phils in the future, meaning if they're able to turn Jonathan Papelbon into a prospect or two that is going to help them in 2016 or 2017, then yeah, I do think it's a good move, mostly because of Ken Giles. Because I absolutely believe that Ken Giles could do the job tomorrow. And I think he's ready to do it, and I think he would have an enormous amount of success. But, Mike, your point is a good one. Jonathan Papelbon was one of the most productive players in Major League Baseball last year doing his job. And when you remove that piece, it kind of shifts everybody else up another notch. So, the eighth inning guy, the seventh inning guy would then become the eighth inning guy, and then, right on down the line. So, just trading Jonathan Papelbon is something that you have to think about, because it is going to affect your bullpen, which has been a strength of yours. But at the end of the day, ultimately, if you think you can get some back that's going to benefit your team in the next year or two, then I think it's something that they certainly would be interested in.
Well, one more question, Murph. Do you think that at this point the Phillies are trying to unload salary, or are we looking for talent? What direction do you think this Phillies organization is going in?
Yeah, both. I think the easy answer is they're absolutely trying to do both. And it does not make for an easy job, for sure, for the general manager and his staff. But, the Phillies have money that they are willing to spend. So they don't need to dump salary like you hear from other organizations because they need to somehow get fiscally, back in the black or something along those lines. What I think they're trying to do is move the veteran talent that they have that are making big sums of money that probably at this point aren't going to have the longevity to see the success that the Phils are hoping to have in 2 years from now, 3 years from now. So in turn, they'd like to bring in some young guys that they have some control over that have talent that can become the new nucleus of the Phillies moving forward. It's a difficult challenge for sure, and they've done a pretty good job this offseason getting some young arms, and we'll see, how those guys pan out. But I don't think it's as much about the money as it is about getting younger, but I think, it's a byproduct, certainly, if you can clear some cap space as well.
Gregg Murphy, everybody, of course, from the Phillies broadcast team. And Murph, I know you were in Atlantic City today, back in Philly. Then you got your home show tonight that you're a big part of as well. Why don't you tell everybody, man, you've been running all over the place with the Phillies caravan and everything. And then what do you got going on tonight?
It's been a fun week for sure. They gave me 5 months off, so it's the least I could do is work this week, right? We have been running. Tonight, I'll be at the Philadelphia Convention Center, Pennsylvania Convention Center in Philadelphia for the Philadelphia Home Show. It goes till 9 o'clock tonight, and of course, again tomorrow and again on Sunday, all day long. And tonight, Mike, I got the beer garden responsibilities.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, so I'm going to hold that down as best I can. So if folks are thinking about coming out to the home show, please stop by the beer garden and say hello. I will be there. I'll also be there tomorrow. But, if you're thinking about doing anything in your home or just want to get ideas about, how to fix things up or a better cleaning product for this or a better way to do this, over 500 vendors at the Pennsylvania Convention Center with just about everything you could possibly need all under one roof. So there's lots of special guests there as well. It's actually a pretty fun time if you've never been there. So it sounds like tomorrow's weather's going to be a little a little crappy. So why not spend it inside at the convention center? Come out to the home show, have some fun.
Yeah, that sounds a lot of fun. And, Greg, I know that you will certainly man the beer garden well. I've had a couple of them with Greg, and he can do a nice job at that beer garden. You're also going to be doing a cool event where we've had a couple before down in Clearwater this year. So anybody who's thinking about going to spring training, how can they get information on your event that you'll be running in Clearwater?
Well, I'll tell you what, and thank you for mentioning that. It's a charity event for the Irish Pub Tour de Shore, which I'm a big part of. It finishes up in Atlantic City every year. So Team Murphy is having a happy hour in Clearwater this year.
Awesome.
On March 23rd at the Brown Boxer, where you and I have kicked a few back, that's for sure. We're going to have all kinds of different items to auction off that night. We're going to have some special guests as well. That will be a lot of fun. Sign some autographs, take some pictures. You can go on. They're actually running a trip down there through PhillyTailgate.com. If people want to go through them and come on down, part of that package, or get down there yourself and come on down on the 23rd to the Brown Box. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we know.
You're there.
Yeah,
you guys are there at that point.
We're trying. I just talked to Amanda the other day, and she said it was the 23rd. My flight was supposed to be out on the 22nd, so I might have to change some things up. I want to get back to that Brown Boxer with you guys. I know that's going to be a great event, and some of my family members have participated in that event. So when we get closer to that, we'll talk to Greg again. But tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday in Philly at the Pennsylvania Convention Center, it is the Philadelphia Home Show. Look for Gregg Murphy at the beer garden. All right, Murph, we'll talk to you soon, pal.
Great talking to you guys. Thanks a lot.
Gregg Murphy. We were in Clearwater, as you said. We're at the Brown Boxer, kicking a few back there, and we went to the pizza shop. Murph and I get into the cab, and my girlfriend at the time ate his pizza right out of his lap.